Welcome to Therapist Spotlight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ange's Therapist Spotlight, the podcast where we aim to showcase our wonderful members to the wider community. I'm your host, Joshua Brooks, and with us is Kathryn Khiroya. And I fuddled that. Kathryn is a nutritionist, Pilates instructor, personal trainer, and Buteyko Breathing Instructor, and I believe mindset and stuff. Owns Sagely Clinic. So this is going to be really interesting. I don't think we've had a breathing coach on yet. But the breath is so important. So it's going to be cool to see how all that works together. So Kathryn, how are you today?
I am really well, Joshua. Thank you. How are you? I'm
good, actually. It's a little bit cloudy here in Queensland, unfortunately, but you know.
Same in Sydney, a little bit cloudy and windy.
Yeah, we can't complain too much. So
no.
So how'd you get into natural health, natural medicine?
Oh, very good question, Joshua. So I'd probably start by saying that for me, making the decision to study and practice as a clinical nutritionist was definitely a process, like a culmination of like many moments, series of conversations, life events, definitely some adulting as well. Mm-hmm. And where my heart, I guess, and values, I could no longer ignore. And I guess by ways of example, for instance, it was, you know, the wake-up call during the years of athletics during all of my teens and my young 20s. My main events were anything jumping. So high jump, long jump, triple jump, even some pole vault and hurdles.
Yeah, wow, cool.
Yet I guess I would say even back then, Joshua, that like training 6 days a week and often twice daily, I just wasn't seeing the results, or, you know, my training wasn't reflecting, you know, the results I was wanting to see in strength, speed, progression. And, you know, on top of that, I was also navigating some quite excruciating IBS-like symptoms that a specialist had suggested it's likely Crohn's disease. It was at the age of 23, and it wasn't, by the way. So I was then just told to live with it. You know, and positive things. It was also, you know, moving overseas with my husband and being exposed to new and wonderful meals and foods, falling pregnant with my 2 daughters, and receiving the gift of, you know, becoming a mum, and knowing that I desired to be really intentional about honouring that, but on a daily basis. Yeah. And then it was also things like, you know, the slow awakening that I no longer had this desire to sit behind, you know, a desk before. And you've already sort of mentioned that's, I guess, how I started to transition towards those more movement-based, you know, modalities like Pilates, boxing, personal training. But I also realised in that space that my limited scope of practice was just that. It was limited. And any time I had a client asking me questions when they sought my recommendations or assistance within their health, I couldn't comprehensively answer. And, you know, even more personally, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about this, it was also being diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, rheumatoid arthritis, in 2012, and feeling helpless as to how I, Kathryn, may navigate my day-to-day symptoms in a meaningful and healthful way. And that really projected me, I guess, you know, or propelled me, I should say, more down that quite then distinct tract of knowing I need to do something to increase my knowledge and my ability to know how to navigate the day-to-day. And, you know, my family then coming on board with that journey while I was studying, to help me through the hard yards of, you know, the daily grind and say, keep on keeping on. You've got this. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite a beautiful story.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep it condensed for you, Joshua.
That's excellent. And so when did your breathing, that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So when did your breathing come into it, and when did that practice happen, and how did that happen?
Very good question. So I was in my last year of university in 2019, and one of our wonderful lecturers, who is a naturopath as well, I had gotten wind that she was a Buteyko breathing specialist and a teacher trainer, practitioner trainer herself. couple of conversations had come about, and I wasn't making a beeline for her, but it just happened that one of these amazing hallway conversations just happened when it needed to. One day when I was walking down our clinic, and I said, I just need to ask about this breathing thing. I've only just got wind that it's apparently a bit of a game changer. Can you please fill me in? And she said, it was quite a quick conversation, to be honest, Joshua, but she said something that really, really got my attention. And it was just simply, Kathryn, breathing is the one thing that has changed and revolutionized my practice. And in that moment, I had two thoughts. I was like, wait, what? Breathing? Hang on. I've studied for 6 years and you're telling me that breathing is the thing? And on top of that, it was the simultaneous thought of, I think she's onto something. I think you might just be right. And so that year, the main instructor, I guess globally, which is Patrick McEwen, was set to head out to Sydney. And I registered to do the training course. It was also the commencement of our own Australian lockdown process. And so we had to do the training. Well, we still got to sit, I think, personally within a room, albeit spaced, but Patrick was on a very big screen coming in from Ireland. And so it all started there.
Yeah, wow. And so what exactly is the Buteyko method? Like, what is it for people who don't know?
Very good question. So Buteyko, Konstantin Buteyko, was a doctor, and in the the mid sort of 1900s, while doing his own internships and practice, noticed that while doing his rounds in a hospital, came across a certain relationship between breathing and the worsening of symptoms. And he noticed that as he went from your typical sort of normal wards, that the breathing was, what he termed, I guess, not really knowingly at the time, but as more functional, whereas when you got to the more intensive wards and the more chronic the case, the breath and the breathing manner became more laboured, more intensified, more noticeable, definitely more loud, and that this relationship really was quite not well studied at the time, that there was a growing science even then, and that it was something that he also noted that if he could improve breathing, that he could improve symptoms. And so he then went on to look into the biomechanics, the biochemistry of breathing in itself, and starting to really gain a distinct, and while there's still not a clear definition globally on what it means to have a functional breathing pattern versus dysfunctional, he was starting to see tenets of both, and being able to park, I guess, one against the other, so to speak. And they really are, in essence, polar opposites.
Yeah, wow. And so then if I'm a new client coming into your practice, how do you merge all of these wonderful modalities together into like a consultation process? Or do you sort of have different streams where you kind of, like, to say, for example, you may advertise as a personal trainer and then you try and move them into nutrition, or you might advertise as a breath coach. How does that work for you in your practice? And that speaks, I think, even very much to my business name, Sagely Clinic. So it's both an echo, I guess, and an aspiration of the healing journey that I've known, not only been on, but others. And sagely, the word is an adverb. It means to do things in a wise manner, a profoundly wise manner. And what this speaks to is, the accumulation of knowledge and even intuition and its importance. It's actually vital. And as practitioners, though, what we also need to ensure is that we collaborate with our clients in order to make a practice out of this knowledge. And that's where I think the life-changing, the transformative stuff really happens. And so for me, one of the things that is always the same when I'm onboarding or seeing a new client is that I deeply listen into that journey, someone else's health journey. I think sometimes it can be overlooked or quickly, passed.
And it's really important that my clients, who often will tell me, you know, I've been given, you know, almost like a sentencing for life. I've been told X, Y, Z about my health. I've been told that I have to, you know, take this medication for I don't know how long, and I don't want this to be or reflect the rest of my life. What can I do? And that provides a beautiful junction for me to, I guess, you know, then employ my values as a business and my values as a clinical nutritionist and how I practice, to again just listen into that beautiful journey that someone else wants to share with me, and to take every, you know, sidebar, every segue story seriously, so that we consider that part of the client's whole. Because that's where I feel again that, one, if I can gain that, you know, that trust and that professional relationship and depth of relationship really with the client, then we have the ability to be on the same foundation so that we can collaborate about the best modalities that suit that client. And for some that can, look really different. Some of them may have a desire to really instigate, you know, a more healthful practice which involves more movement. Some people won't even realize, but I always ask my clients to complete a questionnaire around their breathing. So for a lot of people, we do hinge and found a lot of our practices moving forward off a basis of first establishing our breathing, because one, we all do it, but sometimes we don't know how to do it properly. Second, it's free. Yep. So it's a wonderful place to start. And that means that I can also work with the client at leaving no stone unturned. When we do so, we really can get into their lives. And it means that I can then, you know, in my head already be placing a bit of a logarithm, I guess, and a bit of a strategy around which comes first and what. And I ask my clients all the time, if you could do one thing well, what does that one thing look like? And usually they're so intuitive. And then wisely, as I come back to, you know, my, I guess my name of my business is, then we can implement that one thing. And again, I'll give a quick example here that a client toward the start of this year, she really knew that she needed to change a lot about her dieting. And it was not only the inclusion of her desire for more nutrient-dense foods, it was also time, the manner in which she was, you know, putting her meals across the day, and reflecting that with, how do I do this and still spend time with my boys? I don't want to be chained to my kitchen for, you know, more than 60 minutes a day. I want to honor and spend that quality time. And so when we sat back and had, it only needed to be a 10, 15-minute question, but it was a very insightful process for her to be able to say, then what's the meal of the day that you really want to protect? And she said, it's absolutely my breakfast. I get to sit down with my husband and my boys and we enjoy it. And I said, right, well, that's where we need to protect your time. So we're going to have a look at not the other meals of the day at yet. That can wait. It's a not yet. But let's just take breakfast and let's really bolster its nutrients. And let's do it in a careful way that doesn't have you suddenly waking up hours earlier in the morning to either prepare, or you feeling like you suddenly have to be pulled away from your boys. Even if it's a moment of, is what's in front of me actually what I want to be eating, or should I be eating this? You know, poor clients sometimes get so flustered in those moments of going, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And so we were able to come up with some really smart ways of, you know, making some meals the night before, having fridge ready, having frozen ready things that she could pull out that were wholesome, that met all the macro and micronutrients that we needed to, without her then having either to second guess or feel like she had to be under the burden of, you know, some extra time and employing that rather than doing what she actually really wanted to, which was connecting with her family.
And so then how does the intricacies of your treatment plan look? And we all know that everybody's a bit different, so we're sort of talking about like just in general. Are you then, like you said, that's excellent. So when you are talking to her about what to eat or how to eat, is it much more like you'll plan meals for them, or are you much more about like how to stack your plate? Are you much more talking to them about carbs, fats, proteins, and what's a good source? How does that look? And then how do you bring in, I guess, maybe a movement practice or breathing exercises, or, how does that all look when you're creating that health landscape and that treatment plan for your clients because of the different modalities?
Yeah, very good question, Joshua. So one of the things that I definitely realised exiting university and coming into my own practice was the desire that many clients had for meal plans. And again, just taking that second guessing out. So I actually use a program called That Clean Life, which helps me to very quickly and robustly, and I can tune any of those meal plans to my clients, which is just fantastic. But what it does mean is that I have over 1,000 different recipes at my beck and call, and that I can filter through those recipes to be able to say, okay, particularly this client has these dislikes in food, so I can eradicate those straight away, because that's a part of my initial consultation process, is asking my client very detailed questions about meal planning. What are their likes, their dislikes? Are there any intolerances, allergies, sensitivities? Are there times of the day they feel they have the best motivation even, for instance? How much time do they want to spend in the kitchen? What foods are familiar to them? So that when they get into their kitchen, because it can all be very exciting when you meet, a clinician inside their practice and you're ready to go. But I've got to recognise as a clinician that my client has to go back into their home and back into the kitchen, and they've got to be able to feel empowered to do it. And so going back to this client, for instance, what this was me giving her a number of specific breakfast-only recipes. So I specifically said to her, for the next 3 weeks, we are only concentrating just on breakfast, one thing well. And so she felt empowered, because what she had told me was, I just fall off the bandwagon. Whenever someone has given me a meal plan before, I've stuck with it for maybe 2 days, and then I can't do it anymore. I've said, well, do you feel that you've either taken on too much, or has it been a bit overwhelming? And she said, yes, a resounding yes to all of those things. And so I said, okay, well, it's my objective and job so that we can collaborate together. I need you to know that I am for you and not against you. And so we need able to do this hand meal, and being able to see you do this regularly and consistency, because as boring as that word is, consistent does play in dividends. And so she felt empowered to do that one meal really well. We started off with only 5 recipes. And so that hinged her confidence on being able to do this daily. And within days, I was then getting, either texts or emails to say, Kathryn, not only do I feel so good, but I can do this. This feels great. And I'm keeping, that time protected with my boys. So she was able to do that. And the other thing that we were able to then layer was, because I didn't have or subtracted time from her, we were then able to build in some other practices. So again, we collaborated over what we felt was the highest priorities, and what we also felt were going to give her a symptom reduction, because that's really important in those first few weeks of seeing a client, being able for them to recognise that they're making improvements and headway. And so we were able to then also enlist some. And oftentimes, if I, for instance, talk about breathing, that can look as simply as me saying to them, are you aware of your breath during the day? So not even, for instance, saying to them, look, I want you to do a 20-minute meditation at night. But then they've got this other 23 hours and 40 minutes where they may be breathing completely dysfunctionally. So I need to get them, and bring an awareness to, what does that breath look like all of your day? And so nasal breathing is really important. That's one of the biggest hallmarks of the Buteyko breathing method, is just sealing that lips together and breathing in and out only through our nose. And it's amazing how that in itself can just pay dividends on someone's energy levels, their sleep, their focus, their memory, just even, the way that they have a resilience around their stress or their mental health capacity. And so that in itself can be one of the tenets that we enlist. And then we can do something, for instance, along movement as well. And this, going back to this client, she was keen to make sure that movement became a practice and a regular pattern and lifestyle in her life. And so I was then able to do some functional movement exercise with her, where we had 2 sessions a week of 30 minutes. Again, I came from a background where I was training 6 days a week, sometimes often twice daily, and wasn't receiving rewards. And I know that that was probably very telling, I guess, of the age and stage at which, we were within our, fitness industries and also training and coaching at the time. And I know now that we have smarter heads on ourselves to be able to enlist what's important and to not feel like we're having to really drag our body to do so.
Sure, yeah.
Mm.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. And so just as a little bit, I guess, extra, mainly for my interest, what kind of exercises can we expect with the Buteyko method? Like you said, sealing the lips, but what other sort of ones can people expect if they are maybe a little bit more advanced, or they're a little bit more interested, or they're reaching out?
Yeah, really good. So one of the things that Buteyko, and as the science has grown hugely, is that we've come to know that there is a very strong link between our carbon dioxide and our oxygen. And I'll take my own self as an example for a moment, that when I did my personal training instructing and even the Pilates, there was a certain element of breath taught, but in terms of the understanding the mechanisms for even why or how we breathe, it just wasn't part of the cascade of, what we learnt. And again, just telling of, the industries and the science that we are growing. And what we do know, that carbon dioxide acts as the actual catalyst within our blood, dropping oxygen in cells and then spinning muscle. So, if we're doing movement, for instance, and that enables the delivery not only of oxygen but nutrients into the belly of those muscles. So you have greater ability to, work those muscles and to reduce, those fatigue, that lactic acid. And how to do that means that we also need to consider, well, how might we improve our balance between those two chemicals, the carbon dioxide and the oxygen? And one of the ways that we do that is through exercises that require us to hold on just a little bit, or sometimes maximally, to carbon dioxide. And we do that through breath holding. And, people are probably thinking, breath holding, what do you mean? Breath holding doesn't have to be like maximum breath holds. When I was little, I remember going to, friends' houses or even my cousins, and we'd see who could swim as many laps as we could under the water, to win. It's not that at all. In fact, we have many small exercises, and I'd be happy to go through some with you, where one of them, for instance, and the name is literally as it is, it's called many small breath holds. And we literally breathe normally in and out through the nose for a couple of breaths. And then we're asked to hold our breath, and we can pinch our nose, for instance, to a count of 5 seconds. We release the nose, we breathe normally again, and then we keep repeating this process. This exercise, many small breath holds, is one that I often use in clients who are asthmatics. It's very gentle and it's very effective at reducing symptoms. It's also really powerful for anyone who is prone towards anxiousness or panic attacks, because we can immediately gain a very sensitive but caring, careful control of the breath to then lower it. So that breath hold can be instituted. It's super the power. Vouch off that sympathetic nervous system, which is our obviously our stress system, our fight and our flight, and like that white light switch to switch on that parasympathetic, that peace, that rest and digest system. There's other exercises, obviously, that do have stronger breath holds, or that just help us to even reduce the amount of breath that we take in, because commonly, and this is a generalization, we are over breathers. So being able to, again, just, bring that breath into its control and within its functional breath pattern is really empowering and rejuvenating and healing for the body.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a huge breath advocate.
Awesome.
I've been studying Tai Chi and Qigong and martial arts for a long, long time. And so,
excellent.
Learning that has absolutely changed my life. And strength training as well, with sort of the more strong first paddle sort of disciplines where you're very much timing your movement with your breath. It's a game changer. It really, really is.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and you'll see a lot of, or hear a lot about, functional dentists also talking a lot about the power of breathing. And it's because they've noticed, almost like a surgence in the amount of malocclusions, but also jaw forming or disforming within young children. And we have that crowding, that jaw that becomes quite protruded, longer faces, and that all can come from this dysfunctional breathing and mouth breathing from a very early age. So it's definitely becoming more known and definitely being instituted and advocated by many practitioners, which is really wonderful.
Definitely. Well, we're just up on time here, so thank you so much, Kathryn, for coming on. It's been
my pleasure.
So wonderful to share the space with you. For anybody who's wondering, where can they find you? Where can they contact you? And what's all your details?
So I'm in Epping, New South Wales, and the best way to contact me at the moment is via my website, which is sagelyclinic.com.au. I don't know if you're going to provide a link there just for the spelling, Joshua, so that might be the easiest way to do that. But that's the best way forward. I do have social media accounts, but I'll be very honest, I'm not great at keeping up on them in this season. So I do apologise. But if you contact me via the contact page on my website, I will be absolutely sure to get back to you.
Perfect. Well, as always, guys, details will be in the description box below. So we'd just like to thank you once again, Kathryn, for coming on. It's been a wonderful, wonderful interview.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Joshua. I really feel honoured to be here. Thank you.
For everybody else out there, have a great day, and we'll catch you all next time. Hey? See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Therapist Spotlight. If you would like to know more about ANTA, visit us at www.anta.com.au.